There are certain things narcissists do that seem harmless in the moment. A comment, a look, a joke, a ruined celebration. And before you know it, you stopped laughing, you stopped sharing your wins, and you stopped feeling yourself. Let's talk about it. Have you ever looked at yourself one day and then you realize that you don't laugh like you used to? Not because life got harder, not because you got older or you're getting old, but because somebody somewhere turned every good moment into something heavy. If that is where you are right now, this video is for you. Because when people talk about emotional abuse, they usually imagine, shouting, insults, and dramatic fights. But sometimes the deepest damage happens quietly. So quietly that you didn't even realize that your joy was disappearing until it's completely gone. And that is what I want to talk about today. The quiet ways a narcissist take your joy, not all at once, little by little until you can barely recognize yourself. One of the first things they do is to make you feel guilty for being happy. You come home excited about something. Maybe you got a good news. Maybe something made you laugh. Or maybe you started feeling better after a rough week. And somehow, within minutes, the mood changes. They become cold, withdrawn, annoyed. Suddenly, you're explaining why you're happy or why you're excited instead of enjoying it. You start to notice a pattern. Every time you're excited, something happens. A criticism, a complaint, an argument, and a silent treatment. And eventually, your brain learns something dangerous. Being happy isn't safe. So you stop showing it. Not because you want to, but because you've been trained to. And another way they steal your joy is by making your accomplishment or your achievements feel small. You work very hard for something, you accomplished it, you're so proud of yourself, and instead of celebrating you, they look for a way to make the achievement feel small, or they look for a way to shrink it. And they say things like, "That's not a big deal. Anybody can do that." Or they say things like, "I thought it would be better if you did it this way. I thought it would be better if you did it my way." Changing the subject completely. You walk into a conversation carrying excitement, and you walk out wondering if your achievement or your accomplishment mattered at all. And after enough of these moments, you stopped feeling proud. You stopped celebrating yourself. Not because you have not achieved anything, but because you have gotten used to someone acting like none of it counts. And that is how your joy quietly disappears. Then there's this way they make you question the things you love. Maybe you love dancing. Maybe you love singing in the car. Maybe you enjoy dressing up. Or maybe you enjoy creating content online. Or maybe you laugh loudly. Whatever it is, they find a way to make you self-conscious about it. A little joke here, a sarcastic comment there, a look, a smirk, a sigh. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make you aware of yourself. And once you're aware of yourself, you are no longer free. And now you're monitoring yourself, editing yourself, holding yourself back until one day you realize that you stopped doing the things that make you happy. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you got tired of feeling judged loving them. And another thing they do is to make peace feel unfamiliar. This is so sneaky. When you're constantly walking on eggshell, your nervous system gets used to tension. So when life becomes calm, something feels off. And narcissistic people create this cycle intentionally. Things are good, then suddenly there's a problem. Things settles down, then suddenly there's another crisis. A misunderstanding, an accusation, a complaint, an argument, a crisis, something, always something. Then eventually you stop having peaceful moments because you're waiting for the next crisis. Imagine that. being unable to enjoy happiness because you're busy preparing for its destruction. That's not living, that's survival. And survival mode steals your joy faster than almost anything else. Then the isolation. Not always obvious isolation, They don't tell you to stop talking to people. They make seeing people feel exhausted. So every time you visit family, there's an issue. Every time you hang out with your friends, they become upset. Every time you enjoy yourself without them, there's tension waiting for you at home. So you stopped going, you stopped calling, and then you stopped connecting. And without realizing it, your world gets smaller. The people who made you laugh disappeared. The people who reminded you of who you were disappeared. And the people who poured life into you disappeared. And when joy loses its community, it becomes harder to hold on to. One of the saddest things narcissists take from you isn't your happiness, It is your anticipation of happiness. You stopped looking forward to them. Birthdays, vacations, special occasions, achievements, Somehow, you always look for a way to ruin them. You start expecting disappointments even before good things happen. And that's so disappointing because joy doesn't live in the moment, doesn't only live in the moment. It also lives in hope. It lives in looking forward to something. But when someone constantly destroys that hope, life starts feeling flat, even when good things are happening. But there's one quiet way they steal your joy that nobody talks about enough. They make you forget yourself. That passion that existed before them, that version that laughed easily, that version that was so confident, that version that was not analyzing every word, that version that does not need permission to enjoy her life. Over time, your energy becomes focused on managing them. Their moods, their needs, their reactions, and their expectations. And while you're busy carrying that weight, you slowly lose touch of yourself. That's why so many people living this kind of relationship say the same thing. I don't know myself anymore. That's not an accident. When someone spends years making their world the center of everything, your own world starts fading into the background. But here's one thing I need you to hear. If you notice your joy is disappearing, it doesn't mean it's gone forever. Joy is stubborn. It hides. It waits, but it won't disappear. The laugh that feels false right now is still there. The confidence that feels buried is still there. The dreams you stopped talking about, they are still there too. Underneath the exhaustion, underneath the self-doubt, underneath the years you spent shrinking yourself just to make someone else comfortable, you are still there too. And healing often starts with something surprisingly small, doing something that feels like you again, listening to the music you love, calling someone you miss, taking a walk, starting a hobby, and laughing out loud without apologizing for it. Little moments, little pieces, little reminders that your life belongs to you, not to someone else's control, not to someone else's approval, and not to someone else's mood. You deserve a life where happiness doesn't require permission. You deserve a relationship where your wins are celebrated, where your laughter isn't punished, where your pace isn't constantly interrupted. And most importantly, you deserve to experience joy without waiting for someone to take it away. If any of this video feels familiar, you are not alone. And maybe today might be the day you stop asking yourself why your joy disappeared and start asking yourself that who taught you were not allowed to have it in the first place. If this message spoke to you, let me know in the comments. What's that one thing you loved doing before someone made you feel so small for it? I'd love to hear your story. And if you're rebuilding your life after emotional abuse, subscribe. Because Healing starts with understanding what happened and remembering who you were before it did.